Hello, good time zone, and welcome to the first round of the third season of the Simufur GT4 Championship here. My name is Denak. I'm going to be here commentating this race for you, and I'm supposed to have a co-commentator here with Plasma, but unfortunately he's delayed. But rest assured, there's going to be plenty of action, plenty of new stuff to be happening here, and plenty of just cool, amazing things for you to be marveling over here on this brand new Simufur team here. It has been a while since we've previously had a proper GT4 season here in Simufur. We had a mini-series that we held last year in August, which also happened to be where I debuted my career here in Simufur as an AM driver. But a proper full-on main season, that's been a really long one. We need to go all the way back to it's September in 2021 since we've had a proper full-on season here for GT4 racing, and it's going to be a very exciting one. We have a large spread of drivers here, large spread of cars here, and I believe barring two, we have every single car represented here on this grid. We have the Alpines, we don't have the actual Alpines, we have the Aston Martins, we have the BMWs, we have the Chevrolets, Ginettas, KTMs, Maseratis, McLarens, Mercedes, Porsches. All of them are represented here in this grid. It's going to be a lovely, wonderful race here. And we're about to be starting our qualifying here pretty soon as well. It's currently, we are looking at quite a varied spread of our drivers here as well on our rankings here. We see, obviously, Azure Gold is currently leading the timestamps here going into the end of the practice session here. But we do have a lot of silver drivers here actually having jumped ahead of the pro drivers here with Blade Wolf, Aiden, Otis Volpes, Newt, all ahead of these two pro drivers here with Wushul and Anka. But even with them, the distance between them isn't too small. So we can still very much see the pro drivers here taking the top spots when we are going to be going into the qualifying. And speaking of qualifying, it's going to be not a usual one that we have here in Simufur. Instead of a full-on free-for-all qualifier that we are used to in normal Simufur racing, we're instead going to have a two-split qualifying. What means is that as we are going to be wrapping up the free practice session here, we're going to be having first the AM and the national drivers here. Going to be driving for the first 50 minutes. They will do their rounds, they will do their laps, and once the 50 minutes have concluded, we're going to be then moving over to have the silver and the pro drivers do their rounds as well until the end of the 30-minute practice session. Not the practice session, the qualifying session, apologies. But once that's going to be concluded, we're then going to be having a 45-minute race. It is going to be no mandatory tires, but there is going to be a mandatory pit stop with a mandatory 1 liter of fuel to be put on your car as we drive into the pits here. But we'll get to that as we head on over to the qualifying. We can talk about more about the race once we're done with this here. We just need to see a couple more drivers crossing the finish line here. And looking further down the field here, we also see a couple of our AM drivers making some decent progress here. We also see, for instance, Zezors here, a fair distance ahead of the some of the silver drivers here with Jasper Sparks and Charger and F-Spirit, all the way up in P13 currently on their practice time. So we are going to be watching Zezors with great interest as they are getting ready for their first rounds in qualifying. We also have, luckily, our safety car finally be able to join our grid here with the beautiful M2 car of driven by Andreas Spitzer. Unfortunately, there was some technical difficulties where they were not able to join us for the M2 Cup race here, but those have all been resolved now, and from now on we're going to be having our beautiful, lovely safety car here to keep us safe in case of any accidents during the track here. And we still have a couple more drivers. I do believe that's going to be Blade Wolf here still on an outlap as well, and then it's going to be, after they've crossed the finish line, then it's going to be over through the qualifying session. How exciting. I do believe all the other cars have already finished up their laps, so they're not going to be in a bother anymore. So after that, wait and see what is going to be bringing us here. It's going to be, I'm honestly not quite sure what the silver and pro grid is going to be like, because there have been some very, very fast silver drivers here who have been able to get some very impressive times here, who might even be able to jump our pro drivers here to get the pole position here. We especially have Newt and Vossi here as the first people who have been able to actually do times comparable or even above our regular pro drivers right now. Now we are finally getting our first drivers coming down the grid, and I do believe it's going to be Lapia who's going to be, yes, first driver who's going to be running off the grid here and getting the first spot to take us around here in this beautiful Hungaroring track. It's a total of 14 corners, very technical, very tight section. There's not going to be many overtaking opportunities all around here with how tight and twisted this section is, but it's a track that many people love. but also a track that many people hate. It's a very polarizing track from what I've been able to surmise myself, especially with the GT4s. Like, especially going down into here, into this turn 3, it's a really tricky corner to take flat out, because if you can't take it flat out, you lose a lot of time going up to this big sweeping section up to the left-hander of turn 4. And it's especially very important to see what we are going to be, what the drivers are going to be able to accomplish here in this qualifying session, because yeah, it's going to be a bit difficult to do those overtakes over the full 45-minute race distance. But that's why we also have the pit stops here with only the mandatory fuel, which could hopefully maybe shovel the pack up a little bit to maybe add some more of an unpredictable element to get the make things more interesting here for Simufur. And we see, I do believe that's gonna be all of our national and AM drivers currently out on track. Yes, I am correct. And we have, how many do we have here? We have 9 AM drivers here, but we do believe we also have a couple of nationals here. We, for instance, have here a Yuan V, who is parked for some reason. Not sure why they're not currently on their run here, but we also have Melody here, who is our other national driver here, who's gonna be trying to prove themselves, see what kind of speed they're gonna be doing here. But for now, they're gonna be joining us here with the other drivers here now. I think Club's gonna be, yep, coming up on the final turn here. Then we can finally get ourselves around the lap of Hungaroring here, going on his driver view. Coming up on this straightaway, it's gonna be a really long one. Takes a lot of time. If we especially go into turn 1 here, it's going to be a really hard, tight braking story, and getting the absolutely right is going to be vital here to getting the lap tempo now here. Just on top of the exit, getting that good launch, going up into the section straight towards turn 2. Turn 2 is going to be a really large braking corner as well. It's going to take a lot of focus to get that braking point just right and getting tucked in. Nice and balancing the throttle and the brakes, getting it on the inside, setting yourself up easily for this third turn breathe here. Case get rid of the flat out. Oh, a little lift there, just on the limit of validity, and going up into uphill here towards turn 4. Another really fast corner here. Really brave. You really got that chicane, got that deep there, going up into turn 5, spinning right in a little wide there. There's a bit of time on the exit speed here, but still keeping nice and tight. Up into turn 6 and 7, that really cheeky chicanes actually, where you can really be brave on these curves here. Just speed is going around, a bit of a bounce on the soft skirt, I think it's going fine. Going into turn 8, cutting deep, and again for turn 9. A little bit on the grass here, a bit of a bounce here. Not the best exit, but still doing good here. Setting yourself up for the tight left-hander of turn 9 here. Keeping it close. Power a bit late here, not the best exit, but looking good so far. Down to turn 10, then we go down to turn 11. I'm sorry, turn 12, going up towards the final sector of Hungaroring here. Nice line here. Right underneath the balance, we go turning down for turn 13. Really slow one. These are going to be ones where you can lose the most time if you can get the exit right here. We're going to be going up to the final turn at turn 14. Nice and close, touching that curve a little bit with a good exit speed, and that's going to be our lap around Hungaroring. That's going to be locked with a time of 155.275 as the opener for our national drivers to do here. Let's see if we can go now further down the grid here. We can see as the other drivers going to be doing fine there. See who are now with a 55.5. We do see how a couple of drivers have already interrupted their laps at that time. So this is also going to be the other issue going around Hungaroring. The track limits are very brutal here. Just going a tiny bit too wide on like turn 3 or on the chicane or around turn 10 or turn 11, it can really easily invalidate your lap time, and especially during the race, there's going to be a big risk of people getting cut warnings and even a drive-through penalty if you're not going to be careful, because this was also something I also experienced, as a matter of fact, all the way back in the AM Championship, where the first round of the AM Championship was also held in Hungaroring. I had a pretty good run there, but unfortunately, by driving a bit too bold, a bit too aggressive, I ended up getting a very late last lap drive-through penalty for some track limit warnings, and that ended up costing me the win here. But this is hopefully going to be serving as a reminder for our current selection of AM and NAP drivers here to keep it easy for the athletes for the race. Now looking down the field a bit more here. See a couple more drivers here we currently have. These are still keeping second place here, but looking at, we currently have Wolf and Fox still here with a 156.5 57.5, and then coming over to Kuhn, 57.5, with rounding out the grid. We have Melody at 59.9, and Jinfu at a 2-minute 1. A couple drivers were not able to set their lap times so far. We're going to be watching them with great interest to see how they are able to get their lap times going on here. Alright. So let's see what's going to be happening here. We have about, I do believe it's going to be another 7-ish minutes before we're going to be wrapping things up and getting our stuff over onto our Silver and Pro drivers. Let's see, okay, now we're going to see Luck can be done with their run and heading over to the pits. Let's see if we have anybody else here we can watch over. I do believe Yuan Lee is finally out of the pits here, so we're going to be watching with great interest how they are going to be doing the runs here. They were also with us doing the N2 championship here for the first time, and they seem to have some decent pace. So I feel like with the better power and the better traction of the Porsche 718 Cayman car here, we can hopefully be seeing some good stuff coming from them here. And as we still see, Zizo made a slight improvement to a 56.4, and we also see Lapu now with a 55 flat, but we still haven't seen Amdara's been able to reach the 54 barrier during qualifying runs here. I was watching the practice earlier, as we see, ooh, going with a little slide, they're going up ahead. Okay, that's going to be a very awkward spot for Yuan Lee right here, with being right in the middle. I think that is the McLaren of Ruby Kitsune Fox behind them, and the Maserati of Kroon right ahead of them. So hopefully there's not going to be any issue with traffic coming up on over here. Seems like they're still on a pretty good flying lap here. These are good times. So actually, we do already have seen them doing their first lap here. It's going to be a 56.3, something right in the middle of all our AM drivers here. We also see Snowy now being able to get their first lap on board here with a 56.2. So the spread is pretty tight here with the AM drivers here. It's only between, like, from top 1, from first place all the way down to top 7, there's only about 2 seconds gap. And between going from 3rd place all the way down to 7, there's only about a second, I mean less than a second here between. So there's going to be a really tight competition between all these drivers here. It's going to be like just a competence improvement in any of these corners here. It's just going to be going this wide over here, and it's going to be seeing some maybe some late move, some late minutes changes here to our drivers here. Is there anybody else here in a good run here? Let's see about qualifyings. We do see there seems to be Zizo in a really big improvement here, currently on a 2/10 improvement here going up on turn 1. So we might see them actually be able to jump a lot here, going up the grid here, because there's actually a gigantic gap from Lap and Zizo all the way down to 3rd place, because Lap with a 55 flats, Zizo's with a 55.2, and then we have our 3rd fastest driver of Snowy with a 56.2, over a second off the pace from Zizo. So we see that this Lap and Zizo are definitely going up on some good silver pace here already. So we might have to keep a very close eye on how they're going to be able to get their race pace done here in future events. So far, Zizo have a bit of an unfortunate slide there going up into the middle sector. They're going now down by 2 seconds. That's going to be their lap done, yeah. A bit too wide there, so that's unfortunate from them, but we do see actually Ruby Kitsune Fox here with a 1 second improvement on the lap time, so we actually might see them to jump a couple of positions here. If we can see them do like a decent time here going up into the middle sectors, keeping it nice and tight through to turn 11. Right there, ooh, really deep on that kind of, but gonna be compensated. They're actually going up into there, but still keeping it nice and on the line here. Up into down into turn 12, still with a second lap improvement here on their delta time. Turn 12 nice and tidy, cutting up that curve pretty nice and tidy. Oh, a bit of a slide there. Oh, that's going to be costing them at least a couple tenths here, but still keeping it together. Into turn 13, still on it. Oh, and they're going what? Oh, there goes the lap time. Oh, that's unfortunate. Well, they were on a really big improvement there. That would have been at least 1 or 2 positions up on there if they had been able to get that lap time going, but unfortunate that they weren't able to. But we do have instead we have Cool here coming up right behind them with a 5/10 improvement of that Maserati. It's a really special one as well as you can see here. Bit of an engine problem with our source engine here. Now I do believe we now have Plasma finally able to join us here for qualifying.
Yeah, just took a little bit of time, only 15 minutes later than I expected to be here, but
Yeah,
all
driving
all
perfectly
spares end
legally
well.
over to our commentary booth.
I took a quick trip to Mexico, but hopefully our drivers out here are able to be a little bit more punctual than I was when it comes to their qualifying.
Yes.
The AM drivers, I believe, finishing up the last 4 minutes of their qualifying right now, with Cohen unable to find his livery while I was unable to find a clock. So I think it goes hand in hand. But thank you very much.
Yeah, especially. I mean, I do think there's a bit of a charm with this really obnoxiously purple-pink livery here. it literally started among the Android here as the hope we're going to be seeing some good stuff here. The Maserati is definitely not an easy car to drive without any traction control or ABS, but Cole seems to be able to handle them pretty well here with a current time of 156.8, which is only, yeah, not too far from getting top 3 position here. It's only about 5 tenths over there.
It also is, in my opinion, the best looking GT4 on the grid, and you cannot change
Oh, absolutely.
that. It's about the only good thing about the Maseratis of this era is that they look good because their reliability was fiercely terrible. But putting in some good work, and of course, the beautiful purple lighting up the screen. If it was yellow, I wouldn't like this livery, but easily, hands down, one of my favorites on the grid, just because of that.
Yeah, especially, and we're going to be going on all the final 3-ish minutes of our AMN national drivers here. We don't see anybody on a big improvement here. Unfortunately, Kuhn lost a bit of time here on the middle sectors, and they're not on a much improvement here, but we do see they're about a 1/10.5 up here. That's not going to be enough to improve their standings here, but... Ooh, actually, that's going to be a bit of a good exit going off here, so as we've seen going over the finish line. That's going to be actually an improvement and going up into P5, beating Wolfing Foxtail by 0.002 of a second. Wow.
Yeah, quite the jump from Wolfen, but of course, or from Cohen, jump ahead of Wolfen there. But up still leading the front of the AM grid right now with that 621 Camaro. I can only imagine what's on that car, knowing what is on it in the M2. As Cohen gets a big slide through turn 2. We're actually having a little bit of fun because that rear end of that Maserati does not look hooked up at all after those 2 corners.
Yeah, especially. It's all going to be very interesting because later on in our GT4 season, we're going to be going to Brandstrup Hatch in a very, very wet race. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Maseratis are going to be able to perform here. So we also have another Maserati. I do believe it's going to be, yeah, it's F-Spirit in the silver class. So I think as we are going to be wrapping up the qualifying runs for our AM drivers here, we'll see how the silver drivers are going to be able to do here. But looking at our times so far, there's a big gap between P1 and P2, with Lop able to get a 55 flat, and Zizos coming up right behind him with a 55.2. But then we have our third driver here with a 55.9. It's almost a second off the pace here.
Yeah, it's quite the spread, I have to say, from GT4 grid right now. Although most of our classes are determined by our GT3s, it is worth noting. So you could expect a different level of competencies from each of these drivers. Some of them are going to be more comfortable with the GT4 class, and maybe a little bit less. But what I find quite interesting is that Luck is down by a half a second at the end of their first sector on that fastest flying lap, but pulls together the lap time in the second and third sector. And I think Caesars maybe even having had a mistake on their lap because they lose 4/10 of that time in sector 2 to Lup. So definitely a lot of time left on the table for these AM drivers. I think, again, it is really just a lot of people getting used to these GT4 machines over the very aero-dense machines of the GT3s.
Yeah, the GT4s have a lot bigger tendency for understeering, so it's going to be a much different beast for them to be able to tackle them around. But we do see Zizos being able to get a big improvement here, going up on a 4/10 improvement of their territory as they're going down to the final sector and into turn 12. We're going to be watching them with great interest as they go down into turn 12. Just running around that curve there, keeping it nice and wide there. See if they can keep it together going into turn 13. And close, still on a 4/10 improvement here. We actually see our new AM pole driver here right now as we're getting right towards the end here, because we are now out of time here for AM drivers, and it's now time for our silver and pros here to take over the grid as we go over the finish line here. Yes, that is going to be Z-Source being able to claim the AMP pole with a 54.8. The only driver in AMP to be able to reach that 54 barrier.
Yeah, but don't count everyone else out yet because we still have one driver out there. Kitsune Fox actually finishing up their lap as the final AMP driver, trying to put together what they can. And it does look like they have an improvement on the table, currently up by about 3.5 tenths through the first 2 sectors, so could be a little bit more to come out of this final sector, but a big slide, and that's lap done if I have to say so myself. The McLaren, unfortunately, unable to put the power down and into the inside barrier. That's going to be a 7th place at best for Kitsune Fox.
Yeah, how unfortunate. But now we're moving on over to our silver drivers here, and I do believe that is going to be Grim of the car number 115, who's going to be able to get the first lap going around here. The Mercedes is going to be there. Actually, we had a big discussion about this, but there is currently no balance of power for any of these cars here, so we're probably going to be seeing some very strong times coming here from Grim with the more powerful Mercedes AMG car here. We were supposed to also have an Alpine here on the group, but I do believe they were either signed out or not able to join us here, unfortunately.
Yeah, the Mercedes is one of the stronger cars in the grid, at least going by the statistics we have available to us. But that doesn't mean that this race is all said and done. There was the gentleman's agreement amongst many of the pro drivers to stay away from the Alpine and keep things a little bit more diverse, and do look forward to the fact that we are, for the most part, stuck to that. And the Mercedes, it is the next best choice. But that being said, the Ginetta, actually driven by our very own Oraz, sitting in P12 right now. And of course, all of our pro and silver drivers not having set a lap. They are very closely matched. Harder to get the lap time out of the Ginetta, but the time is still there. They're right on board with the beautiful 6.3-liter V8 inside of this, or 6.2-liter V8 inside of this Mercedes. It is engineering at its finest, and just listening to this car burble around track and throwing it in hard to the left of the S's and far right. With, you might be a little familiar with the exit of this curve. Very easy to pick up an off track there, and been able to keep it together and grab that lap time.
Yeah, it's going to be something to very much pay attention to when we go into the race here, because yeah, as I experienced myself here, there's going to be some very strict track limits here going on Hungaroring, and if you're not paying attention, if you're not careful, it might even just be a last lap upset here, where you're going to get a drive-through penalty and lose your first AMP championship win.
Yeah, I can't imagine you live and you learn, as they say, but it's going to be an immediate pole position for Grim, setting a 153.4, the pace of the field to start us off here. And what a lap that is, because that is already distance from the rest of the field, a gap of 1.3 seconds, and that's on cold tires, might I add. These GT4s running a little bit higher tire pressure than you would expect compared to the GT3s, just to support all that weight. And Grim taking like a fish to water as Aiden now follows up with a gap of 0.6 seconds still from Grim. A 154.1, just to give you an idea of how far ahead Grim is in this first lap.
Yeah, it's also interesting to see, like, on these first laps, we also have our silver and pro drivers still pretty far off the pace of Zors and WAP. You see Zar here with a 55.3 on their first lap here, so it's probably going to be a bit of a contribution with them still having cold tires on their first out lap here, but you can see the gigantic gap there's between the ATM cars of Zar and Saber Kitsune here compared to the monstrous pole position time that Grim Willis has been able to pull off here.
Yeah, and that KTM doesn't even look like a car on the track. It looks more like a spaceship, and so maybe that will give us a little bit of hope as Zar's trying to metal their way through the field. Currently sitting at a 155.3, so just under that 2-second barrier to Grim, and still trying to get ahead of the rest of the AM drivers. But Zar recently promoted to silver. I want to say this is their first championship since they were promoted to silver. Maybe it's their second. But Zar's still fairly new to the silver class. Trying to make a name known for themselves in a class that admittedly is probably the most competitive on the grid in terms of just trying to kind of dig their feet in.
Yeah, the silver grid's also going to be a very fluctuating grid as well here. It seems like whenever we get drivers promoted into the silver class, they're just going to be instantly just moving up from silver all the way up to pro here. There has been many times in the past where we just had drivers going up into silver, and there's going to be all the having the allocations. Oh, you're going to have pro base now, so you're going to be off over to pro now, and that already has happened because we do have some fresh pro drivers here with Wushul and Anka, who have recently been in their silver class here, but they're going to be now finally in pro as they join us here in the GT4 championship.
Well, you mentioned pro drivers while we were talking about that point. Azure putting it on pole by now a 152.6, so distancing themselves by 8/10 to Grimlith in P2 there. So, and that's with the McLaren, which admittedly, while a strong car, is not the fastest car on the grid. So a very mighty time coming in from the number 765.
Yeah, I do believe there's also a bit of track evolution at play here because we did start the track in the fast conditions here. Now we're finally up into Optimus, so that's probably going to be seeing a much greater improvement with all of these silver and pro drivers as they go around the track. And we also want to be pointing out, we also have Bossy here, the very respectable 53.5 currently, only about half a tenth off Grimley this time here. So we could still see a very strong possibility that, as with the M2 Cup Series, we might even see a silver driver on pole here.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's pulling out their pitchforks now and just promoting Vossi to pro, but Newt, of course, not far behind. And like we talked about, silver class, once again, one of the more competitive classes in the grid. You have Aiden immediately following up behind, and it looks like a couple other silvers trying to stake their claim in the pro drivers mix. But Vossi with this Porsche, beautiful white and orange livery, throwing it through the S's. Very familiar looking color scheme. I can't imagine where that could have been influenced from, but looking to stake that claim from P3 all the way up to P1. It could be an improvement, but so far sectors are telling me that they may be a little bit down, and I do believe they have backed off by this point.
Yeah. Well, speaking of improvements, we do see Wushul just able to get a new lap time here of a 53.3, putting them into third place and about a couple tenths off here from Grimley this time here. But we do see, our pro drivers do have plenty of space here. We also have CR Tig Gang Racing driver of Anka here with a 53.9 as well here. Seems like, yeah, the track is starting to really evolve, starting to rub up, finally getting our pro and silver drivers the times we won here. But so far it seems like we had a lot of discussions here about Newt's potential pace here before we started this race here, and currently they are not doing as well as we had expected them to be, currently with a 53.9 here. I do believe, like in their own practice sessions, they would be able to get down into a high 52 as well here, but it seems like it's not quite the case here as we go into the actual qualifying session.
Yeah, well, it's easy to run an infinite amount of laps and do several hundred laps and put down a good lap time. But once it comes to quality, you still have to put that lap in under pressure, especially if you're just trying to run that perfect lap and push the absolute limit, but aren't comfortable running at maybe 99.9%. Then I mean, it can very easily throw you off your game. Plus, of course, you have the consistent conditions and the hot lap modes if that's where their practice is taking place. And it's a little bit different than coming into here and trying to make sure all your pressures are exact and make sure everything is right at the right time, because your pressures are going to fluctuate throughout a lap, especially with the 1.9 tire model. You see pressure fluctuations change a lot more throughout a lap. You don't tend to get stuck at that 26.8 that we used to have to target, 26.7, 26.6 that everyone used to aim for and really nail down on 1.8. So there's a lot more moving parts here, and that can really be affecting any other drivers out on track. But Newt right now already setting down a stellar first sector, already up about 0.3 of a second. So middle sector to go, and then the final sector. There's a lot to be lost, but a lot to be gained right now.
Yeah, we do see there might be a chance for Newt to be able to get all the way up, perhaps even the top 5 over how their time is going so far here, up through the SS towards the protector. They're already up by 4/10, looking pretty impressive here, keeping it just a little bit going up to turn 12. Careful of those track limits down into the final few corners here. We see them drop a little bit of time on the exit, but still keeping nice and tidy up into turn 13. up by almost 5/10 already here, looking at my delta times here. So we might see a nice improvement here, but not quite enough for a full time here, but certainly up into the top 5 as we see them going down into the final corner. Bit of a compromised exit, but still able to keep it tight together as they go over the finish line. It's going to be a 53.5, putting them up into P5 running the mix here between our pro and silver drivers.
I reckon they're going to be kicking themselves for the exit of the final turn there. I mean, there was a big slide coming out of that final corner that surely would have lost them that half-tenth to Bossi. Not even 300ths of a second to Bossi. That's quite fine margins, and of course they're only a 10.5 away from Wuschel, so the battle for the podium in qualifying right now is starting to pick up itself a little bit. I see a decent bit of green on the table, but it's not a lot of big gaps, so that track evolution might be starting to stall out, and it's going to be who can put down the best lap in the final 5 minutes here.
Yeah, we also see at the bottom part of our silver towers, we also see Charger with a really decent improvement here, currently up on 4/10 on their previous best lap time here. Driving, actually, it's an Audi R8. I actually was mistaken, and I thought there would now be no Audi drivers along on this grid here, but I'm actually positively surprised. We actually have almost all drivers currently represented here on the grid, save for the Alpine.
Yeah, what a brave man Charter is for taking that Audi. It is unequivocally the worst car in the GT4 grid, and they have decided to brave it. And honestly, I can't blame them, because that is a beautiful sounding V10 roaring in the back of the engine bay of that Audi. Every time it flies by, and just a little bit speechless. But coming through the final corner, Charter looking to try to put down a fast lap, and it is going to be a big improvement for them. Perhaps it lost a little bit of time, so they will step up the timetables, but still down in 17th, trying to fight with that Audi, trying to get the last little bit of pace. But again, a car that is notoriously difficult in this GT4 category.
It's actually curious to see that the Audi R is actually even slower than our current silver driver of the Maserati with F Spirit, who's currently sitting at a 54.8, while Charter is down over a second here with the 55.8. So even though the Maserati has no traction control, no ABS, the skill driver can really feather the throttle, feather the brakes, just keep it just on the line here to get some decent drives here. And actually, in our previous GT4 mini-series, our winners and podiums were almost always locked out by the Maserati. And I do believe it was actually every single race we had in our GT4 mini-season, it was a Maserati winner.
Yes, I do believe a McLaren stole a podium or a pole position, but I do believe Maseratis unequivocally were the best cars. And Esprit trying to continue that is a big slide coming out of, what is that, turn 11. Well held by Esprit, but we can see those tires are not too happy. That big slide through turn 12, and that's certainly gonna ruin any chance for this lap, if not the off track earlier on. I think they might just be having a little bit of fun seeing the rear end kick out to turn 13 there, but yeah. I think F-Spirit's just out for a nice drive, enjoying themselves in that 777 livery, maybe pulling a little bit of Shane Van Gisbergen. But 51 seconds left in qualifying. All drivers that have not crossed the line, or have already crossed the line, will be on their final lap. And we'll get a couple more here, I think, all the way up to that 5:23, as you see on the track map on the right-hand side, that will make it across, that being Saber Kitsune, who will be trying to set their shout for pole position.
Yeah, looking at our grid so far, there's not going to be many drivers on the improvement. We do see Wuschel here going currently up about a 10th on the lap here, so this might be our final finish in the standings. So we're watching them with great interest. They might have a chance to jump Grim Lilith here, going up into P2 here, but they lost a little bit of time going up into that exit towards the chicane. That's a very notorious section where you can lose a lot of time if you don't get the exit right here, going up into the chicane. Nice, losing a bit more time there up into the S's. They might gain a little bit more time back here. They seem to be just about matching their previous time here, but it looks... it's going to be a really close one here, but unfortunately it doesn't look like they're going to be able to improve on their previous time here and get that P2 position.
I'll never say never, because there's certainly plenty of time left. They could have made a mistake in the final sector of their lap. Of course, our timing screens only show us so much. So Bushel could put on a barnstormer here. Of course, there's drivers further down the grid trying to make their claim for their spot on the grid as we have ticked down to the final minutes, looking for anyone else to go for an improvement. Your first driver, Crash Azure, is not going to be able to do so. Wushel bailing out of their lap. Behind them, I believe, is Lunatic trying to set his lap a little bit faster, but unable to put anything down, and an off track for good measure on top of that, leaving only Saber Kitsune to finish up their lap in that KTM. And it is an improvement through the first sector, waiting for them to cross the second sector line. It's gonna be a big push for that KTM, a notoriously uncompetitive car nowadays. Back in 1.8, it did hold a couple race wins in our first GT4 championship, and it's only 3/10 up for Saber. This is enough to get a couple positions if they're able to bring it home, but the slowest section of the track, very, very easy to overrun those front tires, understeer off a little bit, grab the rear end, and it comes around. Saber using all of the track to their advantage into the final corner of 14, trying to roll into that throttle, keep that momentum up. And is it gonna be enough time for another position? Saber's gonna be looking straight to the timing screen, and it is not a position. It is an improvement, but not a position, as they weren't able to best either Newt, Aiden, Vossi, or any of the other drivers ahead of them.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. They just lost all that time here in those final two corners. They are the trickiest, the most notorious parts of the entire Hungaroring track here. A little bit wide, a little bit too deep, and you're losing kind of many, many tenths over a corner here. But that's going to be the end of our qualifying session, and we now have Azure Goat able to secure pole position with a 52.3, a dominant streak here. Still 8 tenths up from Grim this time here. With that dominant, it seems like it's going to be all in those last sector. It is in the last sector where we're able to find over almost a second time compared to Grimlith here.
I'm not sure what your timing screen saying. I'm looking at about a gap all in the first sector. So someone's lying to us, because I'm seeing a 39 in the first sector. The only driver to do so on my end, a 39.7 with Grim at a 40.3. So looking at 6/10, actually a little bit more than that once you add up the little tiny bits at the end. But it's a lot of time going the way of Azure. I mean, you'd have to imagine that is certainly going to spike some fear into several of these drivers that this race might already be over.
Yeah, well, there's still going to be the race here, and even if there's going to be a situation where Azure might get the good launch going into turn one and escape from the front to the front here, there's still going to be an issue with some overconfidence here. I mean, as I can attest on my own personal experience here, you can have a bit of an off-track moment, get too many track car warnings and get yourself a drive-through, or there could also be another possibility where if you get really bored during the race, you're just going to be picking up your phone and having a chat with some commentators on stream, and that's not going to be something that's going to be looked favorably on by the stewards.
No comment. But I reckon Senna would have plenty of things to attest to, having crashed at Portier back in, I believe it was 93. So it happens to the best, and it's just part of the development arc, you know. So that dominance might, come back and get to Azure. We will have to see over the course of time, but it's not over till it's over. That's for certain.
Absolutely here. And going further down the grid, we do have Vossi able to get the silver pole position here with a very impressive 53.5, right in between all of these pro drivers here, between Saber Kitsune and Anka. We also see Aiden just barely losing out on that pro position by, it's only 300ths of a second here, with Newt coming up right behind him, only 3,000ths of a second on Newt here. So we have a very tight spread with our silver drivers here. And again, as you said, it's a very competitive grid here, at least in the top half of our silver here. And going down into our AM class here, we have Zizor able to secure the AM pole position here with a 54.5, as we now finally get ready to roll it on the outlap here.
Yeah, what an outlap it's going to be with the grid of, I believe we're sitting at 24 cars. And what a mix there is. You have from the most beginner of sports cars to all the way to the top end, 6.3 liter in that Mercedes-Benz. Of course, we're being led away by Azure Goat in the 765 with that McLaren with a very interesting livery choice, I have to say. But of course, Grim taking the Monfilter Mercedes, which had some success recently at Bathurst. The GT3, of course, not the GT4. Then followed up by Wushel in the number 69 with their own take on old Azure's livery, but of course dedicated to their own character and plenty of sponsors to go along with that. Fossey taking home P4 in the number 15 with the, let's say the Tig Gang Junior car. If I had to say so myself. Running away to that, we have Aiden, of course, in the 129 with the beautiful black and yellow. And then they're going to be starting alongside Newt, who I think many people, against better judgment, might have been expecting to take pole position here. But P6, nonetheless, very strong from the Silver driver. The 523, piloted by Saber, the KTM, is going to be lining up in row 4 alongside Anka with the stealth but red BMW, the number 40. Interesting not seeing them in a MS Paint cartoon livery, I have to say.
Yeah, there was a bit of a technical difficulty with that. Yeah.
The 142, piloted by Blade in their usual colors. Of course, always nice to see Blade in the races, followed by Lunatic in the number 8 with a very, very bright green, I have to say. That is a very bright satin, but German links on the back corner. I can accept that. Das ist sehr gut, meine Freunde. Of course, the 406. Now, the Ginetta, as we talked about earlier, with all of the meme stickers piloted by Orez Lopez. We talked about this car being quite difficult to drive in qualifying, get all that pace out, but race trim, expecting them to settle down, maybe a driver to look out for throughout the race. Well, in 12th position, the number 59, of course, going to fall back to Czar, one of our drivers looking to maybe start staking their claim in silver. The Beppis livery looking very notable as we jump back to row 7. The number 6 pilot, the number 6 piloted by Zizors, and plenty of jumping from our camera. Maybe getting a little bit excited there.
It will be hard to get it this way so we can actually see the proper grid going back down here to see the rest of the cars.
Yes, and then the 777 piloted by F Spirit and Shane Van Gisbergen fan, I have to say, and I accept that. Lup with the American Machine. Saw them over at Anthrocon, and I believe they might have been poisoned with something in the water with a very patriotic livery. Of course, the 24 piloted by Charter. The Audi, a very strong performance from them in a car that admittedly is not very happy. The 223 of Jasper. Going to be filing out of row 9, followed by Snowy, the side Juana, and Cohen filling out that 10th row. And we're going to have the 529 of Wolfen, as you see just right in camera shot there, and the quite boisterous Camaro, of course. Kitsune Fox now, the second car on row 11 in the McLaren, followed up by Melody, another McLaren flying by. That's a Camaro. I'm not sure where. I believe we lost a McLaren in there somewhere.
Yeah, it does seem so. And then we have our final car here, our beautiful safety car driver driven by Spitzer here. We were finally able to get them on board. We had some technical difficulties last time to get the safety car on board. So I'm glad to have our final proper safety car to keep our silver Latin Prodars in check here as we go for the first lap around Hungaroring.
Yeah, of course, that safety car following around our grid just in case of any major incidents to collect everyone and make sure that we're all back in line. We'll be in play for the rest of the race, not just at this first lap, but of course on track for this first lap, just to ensure everything goes smoothly. So quite the run to the grid. Only at the chicane, about the halfway point of the track here, the furthest point away from the start finish, at least as we roll through turn 5. And just the melody of engines as we start to roll away with a long forgotten car, or long forgotten class, I should say, that we haven't had for, I want to say it's been over a year now, since we have raced a GT4 in any track, let alone one of our bigger series back when we originally started the GT4 season, but just even since our community races that we've done in this car. It's been a long time coming, and it's nice to have all these cars back in the grid.
Yes, I do believe our previous GT4 series, which was the mini-series where I also had my first debut for Simufur, was back in August of 2022, but proper main series GT4 was also done all the way back in September of 2021. So it actually has been 2 years since we had season 2 of the GT1 Championship, as we see our drivers now going up 2 by 2, going up on the final couple corners, getting ready to roll out and get our race going here. So it certainly could seem to be a race for Azure to win, but also a race for Azure to lose, because anything can happen in this race here, especially on these first couple turns. They're going to be very tight, very technical, so there could be some early incidents as we get ready for the race start.
Yeah, of course, the GT4 cars are known for their touring car-like battles, so the amount of physicality that you can have in this race is definitely modeled after many of the British touring car drivers, but we're today here in Hungary as we roll 2 by 2 down the straight. 2 years since we have last run a main series, and we get ready. The drivers fixed up with the lights going green, and it looks like it might have been a good start for Azure as Grimleth falling close behind. Wishel trying to follow up behind the rest of the grid, but unable to find a gap, taking to the outside. The rest of our cars looking like they're nice and strong down the main straight. Turn 1 goes cleanly for Azure, and the rest of the grid seeming to file well behind, but possibly 3 or 4 wide, all the ways in the back of the grid there. And it looks like down into turn 2, the lead's going to be held by Azure, with Grim followed up by Wushel, Vossi, and Aiden, everyone holding strong in the top 5.
Yeah, it's looking like a really close race here, and everybody able to get away nice and clean here, going up into the middle sectors here. Azure still holding on strong. We are going further down the grid. I do believe we have Caesar be able to top a couple of positions. I'm going in a fight with Leon B here. Going to the middle sectors here. It's going to be some really close fighting. It's going to be 2 by 2 going up into these tricky middle sectors here. There's not going to be much space for cars going side by side. Oh, a bit of a bish pass going up with, I believe that is Yuan Lee there. But still a surprisingly clean lap 1 here. No major incidents so far, which is good to see.
We have seen a couple cars falling down the grid. Lunatic losing a few positions, as well as Aiden dropping behind Anka, who's been able to steal away that 6th position. So a couple drivers moving around here, as well as all of their drivers in between. Saber with a rough start as well, down in P11, down a couple positions from their starting position, about 4 for them. But strongest starter, F-Spirit, in that 777, up 5 positions from their start of the grid position, and it's not even been a complete lap. So there's a lot of chaos that can go on in this race, and well, it looks like that 777's already got their sights set up on the next car as they're looking to the inside of Blade, but that gap was never there, so they're gonna take it out wide, try to set up this corner, and that Aston is now got to be running for its life down this short main straight.
Yeah, it's going to be, both the Maserati and the Aston have really good power engines here, so there's probably not going to be a move on here as we see them going to set up into turn 1 here. It's going to be really interesting to see how F-Space can keep it up close into turn 1, having a little bit of oversteer, but keeping guys together here. We also see Anka right up ahead here, trying to hold on charge from, that is Aiden, moved up a couple of positions at the beginning here, going up into turn 2, still nice and close, right up on the bumper of the Aston here, but you can see that they're really starting to struggle with the protection control of that Maserati.
Absolutely, and it's only going to get worse over the race too. But of course, this first lap, you don't have the surface temperature to the tires, and you only get the core temperature, and that can really make an unpredictable car because it can all of a sudden grip up mid-corner. You get a car that starts to lean in and it wants to grab, but it doesn't work, and then all of a sudden the surface temps get to where they need to be, and the car just works. So it might be just trying to settle in, might not have gotten the proper heat to the tires as well. Of course, if that core temperature is too cold, and they aren't going to get the flex of the tire that they want at all. So there's a lot of things that can be going on right now, but nonetheless, a strong drive up on that first lap as we're looking to settle in for the long haul.
Yeah, going up further on the green, we do see there's Vossi right on the heels of Wushel here, currently in P3, trying to challenge them, going up into the last sector there. Vossi has been having a really good start here so far, and Wushel just trying to hold off. It's going to be a battle of the Porsches here, going up into the final couple corners here. Vossi with going up a bit too wide on turn 12 here. Can they get a better launch going to turn 13? It's going to be a big issue for them to, I think, just get close enough here going up into the front corner. They can maybe get that slipstream going here and hopefully try to make a move on the turn 1.
looks like the pressure is going to start building. But of course, this is the first actually inter-car or inter-manufacturer battle that I see. The two Porsches, I believe there's two KTMs also fighting later on down, but there's no advantage to either of these drivers. This is going to be pure skill on skill as Vossy's pushing that number 69 through the lap, and look at that gap. Our leaders rolling through, already be able to distance themselves by about 2 seconds to Wuschel, but there is going to be an intense fight for this podium as it is the 69, 15, and 272 all looking to stake a claim on that final step.
Yes. And speaking of the KTMs, I do believe we have our first pit stop of the race here with Aiden already going into the pits, and a very early pit stop for sure. As we had spoken earlier, there is a mandatory pit stop in this race here, but there is only a mandatory fuel refueling here. There is no mandatory tires here, so some drivers seem to be opting for a very early pit stop, getting their splash and dash done here, and just trying to get to the rest of the race with this same amount of fuel here. Going up further quick here, we do also see Lunatic has had probably some unfortunate spins all the way down in P23. I'm quite sure what happened to them, but that may have, I only consumed there's probably would have been a unfortunate spin going on somewhere on the track here. But going up, we see Grimlith now finally able to get the hatch up finally on Azure as we go into the tricky final corners here. Grimlight right on the bumper here for the McLaren of Azure. It's going to be a tight fight here, going again on the on a couple corners. See, it's all going to be about that. He gets it here. Gets it on this final journey, because there's not going to be that many good overtaking opportunities going here on Hungaroring.
No, and there's going to be even less so. Looking at the speed traps, that McLaren has 3 kilometers an hour on the Mercedes behind. In fact, the fastest lap, or the fastest speed trap belonging to a McLaren, but not Azure. Newt actually managing a 230 kilometer an hour speed trap. The Azure's 228. Well, down in P2, Grim, 225. So quite a bit of mileage is going to be put between these cars on the streets. It is going to be a very, very hard-fought battle for Grim if they're going to take this P1 position.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like all the drivers are starting to settle into their races here, so this is looking to be more of a race of strategy here than one of pure pace. Yeah, as we had these difficulties getting these overtakes done here going to Hungaroring, so it's all about just trying to stay close to the driver behind them, or driver in front, keeping their bumper here as we see Grim going a bit right. We're trying to chase down Luna. We also see Vossy still here chasing down Wuschel, but Wuschel's still able to hold off on that P3 position. We also see Newt starting to slowly close that gap on the Porsche as well here. That's going to be the other big risk as well, as the drivers are starting to fight, trying to go offline here to cover up the insides here. We also see the drivers behind starting to close the gap and hopefully capitalize on these fighting cars ahead.
And there's a couple of other battles down the grid as well, so there's plenty of places to look. I mean, everywhere I look at, my timing screen is just warning me about a car close to another. And right ahead, we have a luck with the American Machine, as I am going to so amply call this for the rest of the season. Chasing down Charter in that Audi, just trying to get something hooked up. And while they're leading AM class right now, so this is not a battle in class, but it is still a battle for position. While all these drivers are separated into classes, you'll hear us speak of nationals, AMs, silvers, and pros. They are fighting in their own standings, but they also have the overall standings to fight for, which does have a little bit more prestige to them. So Lup, not just trying to sit behind this Audi right now just because they're in another class, but there is still some pride on the line if they're able to take the fight to the service here.
And we just see, I do believe that is actually now going up into side by side, going to the main straight. Oh, that's going to be, hope there's going to be a move going up in F-Speed. I think Otis managed to stop them going up into the last corner, but F-Speed going up inside, going to turn. Oh, a big slide from there. That's going to compromise their exit, but that's also the KTM of Zar right behind both of them here. It's going to be keeping up that fight going to turn 2 now with the Ginetta on the inside there. It's going to be compromising the exit, going up for F-Spirit with Zar right up on the behind. Another slide from the Marsari, but able to just hold up going to turn 3 here with Ginetta right on the outside here. Oh, it's going to be still side by side going up a turn 4. It's going to be close. It's a really high speed corner. It's going to be a big chance for accident, but they're still holding on together with F-Street going wide. And Zar coming up on the outside here. Ooh, that's going to be really close here. Oh, Lord, they are right there on bumper to bumper. It's still going up alongside on the chicane. Oh, this is going to be a big risk for drive-throughs if they're going to be driving this wide here.
Yeah, Hungaroring quite brutal for off track. Czar is taking to the inside, and it's a bit of contact, and into the inside wall goes Czar, trying to take that position away from Oraz or from S-Spirit, but from P9 they drop down. Donut's trying to recover the car, Cohen sneaking by in that liverless Maserati, and that is a disaster of a move. A little bit of a tank slapper, I think, coming in from the 59 there, but oh, that is going to be, they're going to be kicking themselves for such a small mistake and such a terrible result.
Yeah, that is really unfortunate. They're currently dropped all the way down to P18, all the way to the back of the silver grid here, so it's definitely going to be a race of attrition for them, just trying to limit their damage, and hopefully there's not going to be too much damage on that KTM. We do see a bit of scuffed front wing, front bumper on that thing, but hopefully they will be able to get away from that incident. We'll have to keep an eye on them going up. We see F-Spirit seems to be able to... It's actually Oris was being able to finally get away from F-Spirit here after that big kerfuffle here. But you can see, like, there is not a lot of space in that middle sector here. So if you're gonna be side by side there's that big risk for contact. And as we just saw with Czar, it can very easily just end up in a spin and a trip to the barriers.
Oh, that's 777 is all over the place. The tires, I can only imagine, unbelievably overheated. Probably the surface of the sun by this point. Soon we're going to be doing nuclear reactions by the end of this race. So clear out of the stands and stand up, because Lupp is getting ready to take this fight directly to Charter. Coming through turn 5, the Camaro looking for a little bit of a dive on the inside, but the Audi closing the door. The gap was not there, but Lupp starting to get a little bit impatient here and make that space filled, because they do not want the rest of the grid to be catching up to them. He's only 1.5 seconds behind, and you can just see Lupp diving it hard under the brakes, the nose of the car tucking down to the asphalt, while the Audi just tries to fill a gap and make sure this American muscle, this beast of a machine, cannot get through, as you see a little bit of a mistake coming from Lupp, and the Audi able to finally get some breathing room.
Oh yeah, that's Charlie's really putting the Audi through its paces here. Despite it being the notoriously difficult car, and one of the worst cars of the entire GT4 grid, they are really running through its paces here, and we see, like, every single time Lupp's able to catch him up on the straights here with that massive engine on the Camaro here, but it's always, of course, it seems like Carlos able to get that traction a little bit better, get those exits a little bit better here, able to just hold on as we're going up into the main straight here. This might be a chance for a big slipstream over here as we see Lupp inch it in slowly, but Audi V10 has insane straight line speed as well, so that they're going to be able to hold it off here. Going up as we see Z-Source going over the big dive.
Oh my god!
Lupp. Oh yeah, Lupp is not happy about that move there.
Caesar is just taking evasive action. I think maybe having missed their brake marker, but that's cost quite a bit of time for Lupp there, costing them several tenths of a second when they were already on the rear wing, as we see the BMW charging down the straight. I mean, that's a gap of at least a second to the cars ahead, and they came all the ways back from there and nearly took out both Lupp and Charter, just narrowly avoiding the rear wing of that Audi and making it to the runoff. But oh my, that had to have been life flashing before their eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the thing we see with the Amtravers here. That they may have some of that speed and pace throughout the qualifying run here. But when it comes to racing, you have to be able to know when to brake earlier than you normally would, because with the constantly deflecting play here, if you brake at your normal braking point, that's just going to be causing you to hit right at the rear of the car ahead of you.
Especially with 5 cars in such close proximity, from P10 to P14, each of these cars all filling up a gap of less than a second to the car ahead of them. Of course, we have a couple other drivers like that through the field as well, so it's very, very easy to get caught up if the car in front of you brakes earlier than you think, and then you have to brake a little bit earlier. The next car, it very, very easily causes collisions. That's how you find those traffic jams on roadways. Well, now just imagine that at 150 miles an hour on the straight, as we see fourth car in line, filling out that P13 position, as the BMW is going a little bit wide, and Zizor is maybe not getting the run that they wanted. This could be an opportunity for the 911 of Wanted, but I don't think they got the run that they wanted, and now they're under threat from Jasper behind. So 3 cars going into turn one within the cover of a single sheet. And I don't think this is going to be given up for free. One of is having to leave the door open. Inside goes Jasper, and side by side about equal coming through down the run to turn two. I think Wanda might be able to get clear, but Jasper looking again with that Camaro, just trying to fit the nose of that machine, that pony car, trying to get into any kind of gap, unable to do so, and Wanda just driving away on exit.
Yeah, that was a really close fight here with our AM drivers here. And we are still seeing Lop is still right here on the heels of Charlie here. Still holding on strong with that Audi R8 here. They are putting an impressive performance, keeping that really old, really, well, let's say just terrible car of the Audi, and just, they're currently in P9 position here. Going up further along the grid, we still see Rossi still stuck behind Ushul here. It's been, what, probably some 7 laps already, and they've still not been able to make headway here. Still,
I'm not sure what Vossi's going to do, but Wushel going a little bit wide. You could be losing the front end. It looks like Vossi may be having a little bit more front end on that number 15, at least for the short time that we've been around. And Wushel definitely going to be feeling that pressure, and this could be where the strategy starts to take place. Maybe a driver boxing in early or burning up their tires in a way that they don't want to. Hungaroring notorious for destroying the front tires of GT3 machines. Not quite sure on GT4s, but this could very easily result in some kind of strategic race between these two drivers.
Yeah, especially with the again, there is no mandatory tire swap here with these GT4 races here, but there could still be depending on how high the tire wear is going to be on these crashes, we might see a couple drivers here trying to go for the risky move of swapping out their tires and getting on more fuel here, and to hopefully gain that time again as towards the latter half of the track here. But looking so far, we have a couple of drivers already going into the pit, with Amras and Anka both currently having the pit stops here. Zizors and Lop, you want to get ahead of them as we go up into the Lop with a big move going up into turns, going able to just get on the inside of the Audi. I think that's going to be the move finally made by the Audi, and there it is.
And right behind those, Zizors might be looking to take an opportunity. The Audi certainly had a bad run as well. Maybe able to hold tight in turn 3, but certainly Lupp able to sneak their way through, and a big dive coming in from that Camaro. Car that I might add might not be the strongest on the brakes, but in the mirror, Wanda trying to look for a gap. The number 9 position is under threat here. Just because you're in the middle of the pack doesn't mean you're safe, and Wanda now trying to make that move up the grid, but the gap is just so close from front to rear. As a big bump over the curve is going to open up the door, but I don't think Juan can make the run out of the corner, take that gap. But Zizors, the front end of that BMW is just looking so lame, and that Porsche looks poised to take that position.
Yeah, they are driving all over the rear of that BMW M4 right here, and then we also see a little bit of a jittery moving here coming from beyond, but they seem to be having a bit of a longer connection with a bigger ping, and that's going to be the other thing you also have to keep in mind here. Like, you can stay close with other drivers, but especially with our drivers who live farther away from our main servers here. There have been some instances where, like, a little bit of a rubber banding moment can just get them sliding into the front of another car, or into the back of another car, or even to the side, causing a major accident here. So you see that Juan is being uncomfortably jittery here. So drivers around might want to keep a bit of a wide berth on that Porsche 718.
It's just part of sim racing, though. Of course, we don't have to do it down the road. We're all on the track together, but it still is something. It is a bit of a skill to kind of navigate that. So you might see a little bit of caution coming in whenever cars are battling here, but looks like it's not affecting the pace of the 911 there at all. So it could see quite an aggressive fight as Caesar is now starting to file up to the back end of Charter there. That Audi may be in danger of losing another position here soon, as that gap slows down to within half a second and is only getting closer.
Yeah, we see perhaps there's going to be a bit of an issue with the tire on that Audi, as they've already been running here for about 50 minutes here. We already have a look here, BMW going up on, trying to keep it nice and close here, going up into the middle sectors. Up seems to be finally able to get away from the Audi, as they're finally going to be able to get in clean air here. Oh, and there's a contact between them. Oh no, that's... I believe that is Juan who just collected Caesar in that instant. Oh, that is unfortunate.
And we're going to take a look coming into here. Zezers haven't gone deep on the bridge. I do believe the same might have just happened to one of them. Yes, just a little bit too deep. Maybe even caught out by Zezers needing to brake harder than they needed to. But regardless, front to rear contact, one of them certainly not going to be looked upon favorably with that incident. And now we're going to have to deal with whatever front end damages come from that incident as Jasper's starting to put the pressure on to the rear end of that 911, and it could be a look up to the inside of 13, and Jasper going deep on the brakes. One of just trying to look to fill a gap for the cutback, but that move is going to stick. The 223 has now moved up to P9. Coming through 14, we set up for the straightaway. We can just see that Camaro get set to run. That gap already opening up. And down the track we go, trying to move to the inside to break that draft as Jasper starts their march to P8.
Yeah, unfortunately there seems to be a bit of front wing damage on that Porsche 718 of UMB after that contact with the M4. It is unfortunate, but that's how racing is sometimes here, and we do see everybody starting to settle into more of a comfortable wider spacing here between the different drivers here. We see Bossy still holding on to the bumper bushel here, but there's still a bit of a gap forming here. Badger up front here with a whopping 4.3 second gap, going to Grimwith right behind it. They've been just cruising at the front.
Yeah, it is worth noting this is Azure's class of choice, spending quite a bit of time in GT4s and ACC. So an expected lead from the 765, but still again need to do the job and bring it home as they run through turn 13 now, as we hit just around the halfway point of the race, maybe around the halfway point between the next lap, as we start to roll through, and these drivers are going to start to feel their tires ache and cry for just a little bit more grip if they've been working them a little too hard. The best of the best are going to be able to keep that pace and keep those tires under them. Well, we're going to start to see who's been taking care of their tires and who's been bringing the neck when they don't need to in the next couple minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if there's going to be any drivers who opt to actually put on a new fresh set of tires here for the Hungaroring race here. I do believe the majority strategy is going to be with everybody just doing a quick splash and dash, getting the minimum amount of fuel on their cars and just heading out on their way here. But depending on how high this tire rating can be on here, there could be a possibility for some drivers perhaps further down the grid who've already had some unfortunate incidents to maybe put on some fresh. As we see a yellow flag here coming up from Melody here, I'm not quite sure what happened, but they are right here with Autos going up on the inside there, getting a move done here with Simufur and Czar right behind the Melody's one of our national drivers here, going up really close. They're going up into the middle sectors here around the SS over towards the front. So as we see, there seems a bit of a connection issue. I think that was the 919 car of Snowy there who just disappeared off into outer space, it seems.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing ghosts right now because I just witnessed some kind of multiverse murder or something. I'm not quite sure what happened to the 919 there, but fortunately no one else caught up, and I do believe it is just a little bit of a connection issue as they are no longer in the server on my end. That's very, very unfortunate for them, but the 129 of Aiden now starting to put the pressure on Anka as we roll through here. These two drivers have both pit, so while they're in P14 and 15, they are fighting for effectively the higher position. They are sitting 2 and 3 of the cars that have pit so far. Only Blade leads ahead of them, so everyone from Blade up is going to be a car that has yet to pit. So we're looking at Zezors all the ways up to Azure. So this could file out and filter out to being a top 5 position, maybe even a fight for the podium depending how it's going. And Aiden is just eating those curves. You can see how cautious Anka has to be running over that chicane, making sure they avoid the sausages. Well, that KTM does not care. And rolling through these S's, you can just see how nimble that car is. I believe the lightest car in the sim by quite a margin, but also one of the most underpowered in terms of engine displacement.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be working well for Anka, because with the only really big overtaking opportunity is going to be here on the main straight. So it seems to be a kind of a consistent pattern here where Aiden is able to each in on each of these corners here, but as soon as Anka can get on that main straight, it's going to be that massive engine power of the BMW M4, but they can just get away here. But as we see going out to the couple last corners here, Aiden's still holding onto the bumper here with less than a 2/10 gap here as we go on the front corner. Really good exit from in here. This might just be the move that he needs to get up on, heading up right on the bumper of Anka here. I don't think Yeah, that's that power of being just able to pull away, even despite the slipstream that KTM has. The BMW has too much power for the KTM to be able to have an answer.
Yeah, that KTM certainly going to be benefiting quite a bit from the slipstream too, but it looks like there might be a run coming out of turn 1, but once again, the BMW is just stretching its legs in that mid-range torque. The KTM not lacking so much on top end, but coming out of the corner just doesn't get the drive going up the gears as the KTM looking for a move to the inside of 3, but having to think better of it as the gap was not there for long enough. Anka shutting the door as we roll up to turn 4. Aiden now having to file back and get that gap back under control with a big slide coming through the curb of 4, and now trying to roll it up into 5. Anka, that gap starting to stretch. They're starting to get a little bit of a breather, but you can just see it every single time we roll into the corners. That KTM is so strong in the mid corner, so strong over the curbs and compliant. It is just impossible to shake.
Yeah, we can see Ori getting really close here, going up into the SS here, going up towards the final sector here. There's going to be a move up on the outside here, going into turn 11, not quite, but he's getting close. Ankas really seem to be struggling with those tires, and I do believe, yeah, they both have picked for their fresh boots here, so they're just going to have to get those cars all the way to the end with what they have. They're going up into turn, well, 11, still keeping it close. It's not quite there yet. It seems to be it's going to be a big struggle for Anka to be able to hold off. And they seem to be having the bit of pace overall from the two drivers here, but it's just that mid-range torque of the BMW that's keeping Anka in contention. As we see another really close move here, a bit outside the track limits here for Aiden as they go right, touching up on their bumper here. Let's see if we're going up into the main straight here. Can Ida make a move here going up into turn 1? No, they're just gonna slot back into their position. But we do see the 523 of Saber Kitsune as we see Aiden coming up another peak on the inside here going to turn 1. But again, I'm going to be able to pull away with that massive exit speed and mid-range torque of the BMW M4.
The mid-corner KTM is so strong, but it's just the BMW pulls away every time they roll up the gears. And I do believe there was a little bit of a lift coming from the 129 when they went off track there. The gap did open up a little bit faster than I would have expected, but nonetheless, it is still quite a shocking difference when you see them roll through. As we're starting to see some pit stops coming from some of our higher place cars. Rossi, the first car from our top 5 that is actually popped into the pits and is now sitting P7 as we see P1 and 2 have P1 has pit of Azure Goat, and I believe that is Newt directly behind them, the second McLaren that is going to really shake up the order of 64. That is not Newt, that is Melody, but coming in for their pit stop nonetheless. This is going to be where this race starts to take shape. What is Azure going to do just to stop and go? A little splash and we're back out of the pits. So can Grimm match their late race pace? 17:50 to go. Well, this is going to be the make or break point for a lot of these drivers as we see the 777 of S Spirit, who is yet to stop, but is starting to move up the order a little bit as well. They're going to be the ones struggling the most with their tires long run into this race.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we see a couple more drivers going into the pits here. But we do see Yuan V of car 911 here still managing to catch up again onto Chevrolet of Jasper Sparks here. We see, I do believe, yeah, both cars have not yet done the pit stop here, so we might see some interesting strategies happening here between as we are getting towards the final half of our race here. Everybody's still settling into their positions with not many gaps. We do see Aiden here with a really close move up again. It's all the way up, catching up onto Anka, going up into turn 1, going to turn 2, getting really close out on their bumper, trying to look for any opening anywhere, but Anka able to keep their car just planted. And we see those rear tires on the KTMs are sliding around here. They're probably struggling with a bit of a tire wear on that lightweight car.
I can only imagine that Aiden is stomping the pedal every single time you get on the road right now. But you have a car that has very little power, so you see a little bit of a four-wheel slide coming in from the 523 behind the Sabre starting to push the drive-through, unfortunately. They may just pick that up as we were just talking about that. I believe they just picked up that drive-through directly in front of us with that little four-wheel slide that they had. Regardless, when you have a car that doesn't really have a lot of power, like Aiden is right now, and you're trying to chase down someone, it's so frustrating just wanting to plant the power power. And it just, every single time, oh, you put the power down, the car just continues to rotate, but you just can't get the drive out. You don't have the momentum built up, and you just can't get the momentum built up. You don't have that power. So I can only imagine that maybe a shock from the tires is under the brakes. They go a little bit deep as Aiden is Saber trying to take the position. I believe they will inherit that, and Aiden now having to demote themselves right back down to P12. Saber having to serve that drive-through though. Will they take it to the pits? Yes, they will. So Aiden's gonna cut their losses a little bit there, but that's still about 2 seconds. I believe they just lost Marco at that braking moment.
Yeah, and I was going to be pointing out there, we have the 404 of Kuhn here right ahead of Anka, and that would have probably been the best opportunity for Aiden to try and make a move here. As we see, they are both on the same lap here. They are both fighting for position, so Kuhn is not under any obligation to let Anka by here, and we do see he's not pulling over here, so this could still be an opportunity for Aiden to maybe close the gap here, find an opening as Anka in the car number 40 is trying to get a navigating around this bright pink and black Maserati of Kuhn.
Yeah, we can see going into turn 2, that gap between the KTM and the BMW just halved itself. So there is no doubt that Aiden is pushing the car to its limits right now, as Anka is just stuck in the dirty air of this Maserati right now. These GT4 machines, they aren't that aero dependent, but you still will feel it, and especially if there's a car in front of you getting loose like that, it's not a comfortable feeling to be stuck behind them. You don't know what they're doing, and the KTM going deep in the brakes again, and Aiden with contact to the rear end of that BMW. That could shake things up a little bit, as it might have caused a little bit of damage. I think both cars look relatively fine, but understeer coming in from that BMW. Same with the KTM, as every inch of track is used, legal or not, it is going to be run over. As we see the Carmelity, I think, having lost control of the car coming through the turn 9 or 8-9 complex. But we have to jump back to Aiden, going deep under the brakes again, just trying to make something work on that BMW. And I think desperations are starting to creep in.
Yeah, I can also see ahead of there's also another car. I do believe that is the car of Yuan V and Blade with Kagi, also in their own bit of fighting here, unless I am mistaken. No, actually, that is a lap car here. So actually, I already see a bit of lap track going, as we see Aiden right up on the bumper of Anka here. That KTM is going really wide on all of these tracks. I'm surprised they don't have a drive-through penalty here at this point.
Certainly gaming the track limits a little bit. I have to imagine if they are not picking up any track limit warnings, but under the inside of the 404 goes Anka. The KTM needs to get through there now. Well, there's still a door, but Cohen, it looks like, is going to hold strong in this position. So this is going to be the hard fight for Aiden, having to send it deep under the brakes around the outside of 2. Able to stick it around the outer rim there, and Cohen is able to dial back into P10 now, and the chase resumes as Anka and Aiden move up the grid.
Yeah, it's going to be a really just to see how they are going to be. It's still 30 minutes left on this race as we see them coming back corner deep, going up into turn 4. You also see some more cars ahead. I do believe that is now another lap car ahead here. That is, I do believe, if I check my relatives here, that is the number 96 of Simufur now ahead of Anka here. They're getting more lap with a very bold track cut from Aiden on that chicane here, and we do also see another drive-through penalty here given for card number 777 of F3. As we see Aiden getting right up on the bumper of Anka again here, going up into turn 11, still keeping it close with a big slide coming from Kuhn in the background here, but to keep it nice and tidy. There's going to be yet another little bit of a peak going up on there, but still not quite able to find that tiny bit of space there to get that move made.
Yeah, sooner or later. You have to imagine this move is going to come in as Aiden looking for a dive to the inside, having to back out, thinking better of it. Look at, they don't lose any time. The front end of that BMW, you have to imagine, just screaming for mercy, because Aiden's just gaining every time in the mid-corner, even more than before, and it's starting to leak onto the straights where that BMW isn't getting the run that it needs to stay safe, and then they're under threat in the next corner, only really being safe on this main straight once they're really able to open up the engine of that BMW, and the door is open. The KTM looking for a gap. The number 40 trying to take to the inside in turn 2, hold that position, but the BMW's power just able to file them in front once again as Aiden's trying to sneak it around the outside, looking for any gap they can. From 2 to 3, the KTM's just trying to swing around anything, but that BMW is looking wider than the rear end of any GT4 right now, and it's just making it impossible.
Ooh, Wes, we just see it with another big four-wheel slide on that KTM here. That BMW is must be as wide as a cruise ship with from Ian's perspective here. Just trying to find those gaps here, trying those little tiny peaks here, but Ankara able to park themselves right in that correct position to keep themselves tied, as we see again with a big slide coming up. There's a bit of contact between Ankara, and that's going to be, oh no. Ankara just out of the race now with a big spin into the barriers there.
Yeah, quite a bit of damage. You can see the white scuff marks on the front end of that BMW, just picking a little bit of oversteer up, and then Aiden just kind of trapped on the inside. It's certainly going to be an interesting one to look at if it goes to our stewards, but that's a rather tricky incident. Having a car lose it in front of you like that and not having any time to react, it's definitely very, very unfortunate for Anka, to say the least, because that was looking to fire up into quite the battle, and there's still a couple cars here that had to pit, so there's a couple more positions that possibly could have been gained, but that number 40 is looking very much worse for wear. And of course, all the damage picked up on the front end, the exact part of the car that this BMW is struggling with here at Hungaroring.
Yeah. It seems that unfortunately put an end to our nice close race here, and everybody else seems to have been able to settle into a nice comfortable gap between all our cars. So going up the grid here, we still see Wushul have inherited the lead of the race so far here, but they have yet to pit, and of our drivers here, it's actually only car number 69 of Wushul and 404 of Kuhn have yet to take a pit stop here, so they might be angling for a really late pit stop splash and dash here. And looking at the relative times here so far, Azure is still flying with 53.8 lap times here, so slowly closing that gap here on Wushul. So I'm going to be very likely that as Wushul eventually pulls into the pits, it's going to be Azure Goat again, inheriting the lead of the race here.
You'd have to imagine. I mean, I would struggle to see any other way that this would have been turned around, especially without any incidents coming in from Azure or Grim. We haven't seen any yellow flags pop up and they drive by, or they're stuck in the gravel, so it would be a shock. And especially looking at the gap, say Azure currently leading with a 7-second gap over Grim, and we know their pace, so it's not like Azure's been cruising either. It has certainly been pedal to the metal, and as long as lap traffic's played relatively nice, I see no universe where Azure doesn't inherit this lead back.
But we do see a bit of a fight here with the American muscles of the two Camaros here between Lup and Jasper Sparks. You see Lup getting the right over the inside of the two American machines here. We do see they are indeed in different classes here, but again, with their overall position, that's going to be the one that's going to be giving great points. And there's still glory to be had in the overall positions here, even though we are not fighting for the same class here. We do see there's also, I believe, the car of Charter up ahead with that Audi R8 still holding on strong in P13. Casper keeping it nice and closer, going on the final few corners here on the last sector here. So this might be developing into this fight here. We see Lup wide going up into the turn 12 entry here, trying to get that good exit speed here to close that gap on Jasper here as we go into the final corner with a really tiny tight exit here. That might be an opportunity for Lup with an overtake going up into the main straight.
Yeah, and it is the same cars though, so you're going to have to set it up that much better if you're going to try to make a move on a track like Hungaroring. You're almost going to need a mistake, but we can see those Camaros are both narrowing down on the Audi directly ahead. What are you doing? V8 charging down the main straight, and Charter just eyes probably filled up with those mirrors. There's a big dive coming from Jasper into turn 2, but the Audi holding strong, Charter shutting that door, and the gap was not there for the 223. All that's doing is a big bounce over the curb of turn 3, as that's all that's doing is going to be feeding time back to Lup, as they had finally pulled away, and Charter's really struggling through the middle sector here, the start of the middle sector, as that gap is now closed down to mere tenths of a second. All three of these cars covered by less than a second right now.
Yeah, we also see further up the we actually have the 404 Kuhn actually getting up on some close fighting here with Adam. Actually, it was actually Anka who just getting actually a bit of a fight here between the and pro drivers here. This is really surprising seeing Kuhn all the way up in P8. I know they have not done their pit stop yet here, but they are putting it really late and getting that bright missing texture Maserati of 404 into their pace and hoping to probably get some positions here. We have their next AM driver. That's going to be Lop all the way down in P15, and the gap is it's actually quite substantial here. So if Kuhn can get a really good fast pit stop here going up in, that could actually be them inheriting the lead in the AM class.
Yeah, but indeed with that, you would expect Kuhn to not put up a lot of the fight. It's no textures, no pit stops. Maybe they forgot about it. We'll have to see over time here, but that 404 is certainly looking like they might have a good position to the later part of this race. So we're going to keep close eyes on them, close tabs, because they are getting pressure for the York mounted on them by directly behind, and also taking a look back around. I mean, the timer table says we got a couple other battles that are going on around, so it looks like luck might not have been able to keep up, but Wolfen going to the inside of 13. It looks like contact. I believe that was with Ruby. Judging by the livery, the position is returned, but oh, that was a last-second move from what we were able to catch there from the 529, and I don't see any damage, so this might resume, but 4.5 minutes left to go. That's a big gap to bring back.
Yeah, especially as we also see, that's going to be the car of luck. We're going to really wide going into turn 5 here. There's going to be the last few minutes possibly for our drivers to get their pit stops here. As we go check our timings again here, it's only going to be the 404 car of Kuhn here, still having not yet pit their car. So I'm starting to be feeling really concerned if they're actually going to be going into the pits at all here, because the pit window is closing. They only have 2.5 minutes here to get the pit stop done here. But we do see Jasper here getting close, trying to edge that ever so slightly gap over towards the R8, as we see Ariel coming up the inside, going up into turn 11 with him maybe a bit over the outside here. That might just be the watching. He's going up into turn 12 on the inside, get that better exit, and there's the move done finally for the Chevrolet Camaro.
Yeah, looks like Jasper might have a possible chance or a shout for another position if we stay by. I think they're going to get past Cohen, who is taking to the pits here. So that will probably be the rest of their race done if they can fend off Charter and Lupp behind, though. Lupp, of course, pushing Jasper all the way up to Charter. So the fight is not over yet. Charter still has their work cut out for them, as we see Jasper going a little bit wide. Does that open an opportunity for Charter here? I don't think so. But Lupp starting to fill up the mirrors of that 4-ring machine as we roll through turn 2. Zizor's going a little bit wide in the background there as well. Another car in this battle, if it does get a little bit too spicy, that can benefit. But coming up to turn 4, the immediate battle is going to be directly between Luck chasing Charter, chasing Jasper, all covered within a second once again.
Yeah, we also see, unfortunately, it seems like Kuhn have been able their entry speed going into the pit stop, because they do have a stop go 30 penalty after their pit stop. We also see Lob having another peak here going into the chicane. And right on the inside of Fatigue A going wide. Yeah, that's going to be fun, the move made here for up here. We see also Caesar over there, so it seems to me, I think that is the car of Melody off the stock here. We see, a big slide coming here from Charter. The hold up on the car. But Caesar still not able to get the move, able to just get the bumper alongside, but not quite able to get past that V10 of the Audi.
Yeah, we saw the Audi squeeze the BMW quite aggressively, so Charter aware of what was going on around them and really making sure they held on to that position. These are certainly not going to be happy, but all is fair in love and war, and I'm sure that favor is going to be returned at some point soon, especially with how much that Audi's struggling. I think they might get a second chance here. As we take a look up for the battle for P9, Sabre trying to take a little bit of a look against the Porsche, going inside to outside, back to inside perhaps. The KTM not getting the drive it needs out of the corner, and the Porsche pulling away a little bit. but Saber so strong and confident under the brakes, might be able to make something happen regardless. Swinging it around the outside of turn 2, Lunatic is looking from left to right to left, just trying to hold true to their line as Saber is pushing through every inch of tarmac as they now roll up to turn 4, where they would have gotten their drive-through before, and they need to just be a little bit careful. A lot of curb taken on the inside, but that Porsche is starting to walk away a little bit as F-Sphere is a little bit slow now. I believe losing a position. No, not losing a position. I believe that was Melody just rolling by there. But, oh my. It's all kicking off in the last 30 seconds.
Oh yeah, because you see Zar coming up right on the bumper of Kuhn here. I do believe Zar had a bit of an unfortunate incident in the earlier starts of the race that dropped him down the grid here. We do see... Yeah, it's going to be a tough fight for Zar to be able to get that move done with the massive engine power of the Zar. As we go, probably, I do believe it's going to be one last lap here as we see Azure... But she's still in a really dominant heat going up through the... sector here towards the second sector, trying to catch up some more cars ahead here, but yeah, it's looking very much like Azure winning as we go back down the grid here. We see Zar with more some last cars around, going around. That's really the Melody. McLaren going up, trying to avoid contact here. That's gonna be just barely squeezed right there, and that's gonna be gap lost to Kuhn.
Gap lost, but they still have a lap to go. Is just behind them is actually Azure just down the track. So Azure on their final lap, with Zar having yet to start their final lap. So Cohen's still got another lap of pressure that they got to put up with. But ticking over into Sector 3 for the final time this race is going to be Azure. That 765 rolling through, I believe, turn 12 and up to turn 13 now. But Zar taking to the outside, and now Cohen's jumping in to serve that stop go 30 as they would be obliged to do. So Zar losing out on that battle, but of course coming across the line out of the final corner about right now, I believe, yes, is going to be Azure coming across to take the first win of the season in GT4, and a dominant win it was, as still several seconds behind and down the road as Grim Lilith final gap going to be edging out to 8.3 seconds. So a very, very dominant win for that McLaren. Of course, trying to still settle who is in third. I believe that is going to be Wushel there in the background. The 69 taking, I believe, their first podium on return to pro. Of course, we have the rest of our cars. Vossi taking the silver win, followed by 2 pro Newt, who is not pro as much as everyone else might say, and Bladewolf taking home now the final silver podium spot. As Aiden now actually as well, the driver I was expecting to push for that win, it's getting trapped down in fourth in that silver class battle, but still a very strong race from them, able to snuff out a couple of pros attempts. And Anka, after a very unfortunate incident, is going to be strolling home in eighth. So quite a few of our drivers will be quite happy with this race. Lunatic, I think, will be one of them, able to fend off Saber and hold themselves into that top 10 Saber. A little bit of flash, and Orez then sneaking across that 409 in P11. I believe we have another battle of these cars. The 223 just barely leading ahead of Charter. Charter, I think, actually having lost out in the final lap to Lup there. Or Jasper. Actually, no, I think they both got by, because Jasper was the last car in line who was going to steal P11 from both of these cars.
Yeah, and we also see we're starting to get the last cars here, but we can see these are coming up over in P14 with Theon being right behind them in P16. If straight down with that Maserati in P17, I believe we also have some cars that are disconnecting. We now have our last cars here with Simufur in 21st, Zar coming up over in 18th place, and Kuhn, unfortunate for them, that missed up pit stop, dropping all the way down to last place.
Yeah, brutal pit stop, but I believe Lup are winner. Yes, I believe, checking the time screens one final time, followed by Zizor's P2 and Wanna taking their first podium, their first class podium, if I'm not mistaken. And they were right in the middle of the action the entire time, so you can't say they didn't work for it. But quite a strong race from all of our drivers. Hungaroring, as usual, chaotic, many track limits. Surprisingly, a couple of drive-throughs for speed on entry, but as you're taking the win for your first race here, 8.8 seconds, the final interval coming from the server. And I believe Grim was way in the back there, just swinging it through the pit entry. But Aussie coming home with the silver win, the only 4 seconds ahead of Newt. So gap a little bit smaller than it felt. And Blade Wolf taking home that 3rd place and coming over to AM one final time. Lup taking that AM champ or that AM class win only 2 seconds ahead of Zzors. So once again, having to work for it. The most dominant win of all places coming from our pro category.
Yeah, we also do see in the AM category, we don't actually have too many finishes. So we have Lup, Zzors finishing on the same lap there, but everybody else from the AM class a lap down. We also see, unfortunately, it was Snowy who had that early race disconnection Melody with a couple spins there, and Fluffy Whoop was also apparently not participating on the race here. So very interesting spread here coming up on our AM driver show, but that's going to be the end of our first round of the GT4 Season 3 race here. What an exciting event.
Yeah, it certainly set the pace for the rest of the season. I know that McLaren's got a few tracks coming up that might not be the strongest, so I'm certainly looking forward to what we might see in the next couple of races, especially coming into Imola. That Mercedes is going to be so strong with the low speed torque and mid-range power of that car. That's a race that I am very much looking forward to. Imola, maybe a little bit biased, one of my favorite tracks in the sim, but a few tight and twisty tracks as well. Misano and Brands Hatch coming up on the schedule as well. That's going to be some classic GT4 racing, to say the least. I'd expect many door bangs in that one.
Yeah, it's also going to be very interesting seeing how the Maseratis are going to be faring in the very wet and rainy Brands Hatch race in round 4, but that is still many, many weeks over here. For now, though, that is going to be the end of our first GT4 round here. Stay tuned for this Sunday when we're going to be having the 2nd round of our M2 Sunday series here. Currently going to be in Nürburgring. Stay tuned for that here, but that's going to be it from me and Plasma. Thank everybody here. Have a good night.